What you are about to watch is a video done by myself and Jessica about our first day in premarital counseling that took place last Friday, the 27th. Enjoy. Let's get right in to Beautiful Feet videos. Hi, welcome to Beautiful Feet videos. So this video, we're actually going to be doing a series of videos kind of talking about our engagement, talking about different things that are involved in that. The first thing we wanted to mention is we are going through premarital counseling. Now there's a lot of people who ask us, well, why are you going through counseling? What's the point? Jessica, what is the point of us going through counseling?
Well, like Anthony was saying, a lot of people, when they find out that we're going to premarital counseling, the first thing out of their mouths is, oh, is your marriage in trouble already? And we're like, no, it is entirely opposite. Like, the reason that Anthony and I are going to premarital counseling is so that when, like, troubling times in our marriage do come up, we have some tools in our toolbox, as it were, things that we can just implement to make those hard times like smoother, I guess.
Yeah, so they're basically, we looked at it like we need to be able to have like tools in our, like she said, that when we go through these difficult times, we are able to start communication that really gets the ball rolling on how to solve some of these issues that we face through counseling or through our marriage. And so we went ahead, we talked to our officiant for our wedding, right? And he basically were like, hey, we want to go through premarital counseling. Now, the guy who's officiating our wedding also is a member of our church, and so we talked to a couple members of our church, and basically they set us up with this program. We had our first session. So before we had our first session, we actually had the opportunity to take two tests. I took one test, she took the other test, and it's basically a series of questions of like, who do you think plays this role in the relationship? And it also kind of goes into the history, like our family history, right? So like my family's history and her family's history. What did you think of that test?
Honestly, like, some of the questions I was like, I don't even know how to answer this question. Some of the questions were just like, I just don't know. I kind of have to guess. But that was only for a few things. Like, for most of the questions, it was like, okay, I have a pretty straightforward, like, here is my answer to this. Obviously, like, they had us take, they called it an assessment test. They had us take the assessment test separately, and then we were not allowed to talk about it, like, at all.
Yeah, so we couldn't talk about it together. That was difficult. Because we got to questions that, like, after the test, after this assessment, we wanted to sit down and go, hey, what did you put for question 5? Or what did you put for question 7 or whatever? And I had to bite my tongue. I had an issue with this because her and I are like open books. We talk about everything. And so that was a challenge. But now, go ahead.
There was a reason for this. The reason they had us take, like, we took the same test. Except we obviously had different answers to it. The reason they had us take the test separately and not talk about it was because that was our first premarital counseling session. Was like, okay, we're going to sit down with our officiant and he's going to go over our responses and kind of like, okay, does that resonate with you? Does that sound like something you agree with? And then we dug a little deeper because these were very surface level questions.
Yeah, they were very surface level, but they really got you thinking, which was cool.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to go ahead, we're going to talk about the fact that yesterday we had our first counseling session with our officiant, which we're going to go ahead and call our mentor. Just to kind of make it easier. The word officiant does not roll off my tongue. So we met with him, we met at the church yesterday at noon. And her and I, she could tell you, we had been looking forward to this all week, which is really funny. Most men, from my perspective, they will not go to counseling unless the relationship is falling apart and they have no way of fixing it. Um, by the grace of God, like, I looked at it the opposite. I was one of the advocates for us going through counseling because I wanted us to have those tools. But we were really excited for this.
Mm-hmm.
We were super stoked. We woke up yesterday morning. We got dressed. We went out. We got a little bit of food.
Yeah.
And then we headed off to our counseling session. And like she said, our mentor basically sat down with us and was like, Anthony, here's your results. Here's her results. And we just talked about them. If we had the results with us, we would kind of share a little bit with you. But unfortunately, we didn't finish going through this packet. It was probably, 15-page packet?
Yeah, and
About-
we're on like page 6 or 7 right now.
So we made it about halfway through. Once we're done with that, maybe we'll actually make a kind of a sister video to this, talking about this this packet, just kind of give you a glimpse of what it is. But we started going through this, and we talked about everything from family history,
Oh yeah.
especially my side of the family. But we talked about that. We talked about what we expect from marriage, and we just started the conversation. The pre-marriage counseling is actually, I think, about 6 sessions.
Yeah, 5 or 6 sessions.
Basically what they have is every session you have a certain number of things that you're supposed to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't accomplish it, it just goes to the next one. So our first session is actually going to be continued in our second. So what were your initial thoughts of like this counseling session? What did you think of it?
So honestly, I thought we really had a lot of fun. It helps because we do know, as Anthony was saying, like our mentor is someone that is close to us, and we've spent a good year and a half like working with this individual and being close with them and seeing them on a weekly basis. So like they really know us as a couple, and I think that really helped us. So we're not just walking into this situation of like, here, we're going to go into some really deep stuff with someone that we haven't met before. So because we have a rapport with him, that was really helpful. And honestly, like we got into some really, really deep things with like our families and what we saw growing up, and like how that kind of shaped what our view of marriage, just in general, is not like marriage between him and I. We kind of looked at the
broad sense of
the
marriage.
broad view of marriage. And then I'm assuming as the sessions go on, we'll focus more on, okay, this is like what we can learn about marriage to apply it to our own married life together.
Yeah, my first response to this counseling yesterday, it was great. I mean, we got some deep conversation going, specifically on my end, with some of the things going on, like issues that I've seen with my family and breaking that cycle and those type of things. And I think God's going to use this counseling to really build us up, to really give us that marriage that like He desires us to have. And that was our goal. Mm-hmm. We wanted to have a marriage where it's like, this is what God brought together, what God brings together, no man can tear apart. We didn't want to give the enemy any foothold in the marriage to tear us apart. So that's why it was so important to us. So my first response to this counseling was, I got a lot off my chest. I got to talk about a lot of stuff in a safe environment. I believe she did as well. It was good. I mean, that's exactly what I expected it to be, and I'm really looking forward to not just talking about the broad sense of marriage, but breaking it down as to our marriage and what that's going to look like. What do you think? What are you looking forward to the most?
Well, honestly, one of the things that we talked about, that Anthony and I have talked about previously to this, because he and I apparently have talked about a lot of what we addressed in the counseling session, like on our own previously. But one of the biggest things that we both touched on was, like he was saying, there's cycles to break, and one of the biggest things is divorce in both of our families. And we talked about the fact that for us, like, divorce is not an option.
Divorce is actually a bad word.
It's a dirty word.
It's not allowed with, like, we're allowed to say it in the video, but we're not allowed to say it in the relationship. No. It's not an option. It's not something we bring up. And so One of my favorite things about it was the fact that you and I worked really hard to have these conversations before premarital counseling.
Yeah.
Our mentor really said, he's like, I know couples who got married and they never had these conversations. And we had already had them. We've been having them for at least a year. Sometimes even more. We've been together just about 2 years. And so we sat down, and when we sit down, I mean, we dig into every aspect of what marriage is and what God says marriage is and what kind of marriage we want. So, yeah, that was basically our first session of marriage counseling. I almost said marriage. Our first session of marriage. Our first session of premarital counseling. And do you want to do this as a weekly thing? Like after every session?
Yeah,
just kind of
have a little segment to update you.
Yeah, so we're going to plan on updating you hopefully once a week.
Let you know what's
See what's going on. And like I said, when we start getting the materials together and things like that, we might actually share with you some things that we're learning. They actually, our mentor gave us, our mentor gave us this book of like, we actually have homework.
We do.
We actually have to read this book, and like I have a workbook, she has a workbook. We read I'm going to say novel, it's not a novel, but the novel together, and then I work on the workbook, and then she works on her workbook, and then we come together and discuss our answers.
Like, our homework for this week, we have to read chapter 1 in the book that we have together, and then separately do exercises 1 through 5. That's
and the beautiful thing in that is I'm going to get my input in, she's going to get her input in, and we're going to be able to really discuss any issues, anything that we see in there. And if you're willing to, we might be able to really share some of that with you. We're not going to share everything with you guys, but I think it's safe to say that we're gonna want to share a lot with you. So, and plus that's going to help us. Like it's going to help us solidify with us. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, that was the first session. Our next session is coming up later this week, and we're going to jump into that. But we'll definitely hit you